Hi. Uh, I'm not going to ask how everyone's doing tonight. But I will say that I've had a few speculative questions and had an inkling to look into some things that had to do with what they call Havana Syndrome, which a lot of the symptoms are equal to what happens to people that are gang stalked or attacked by remote monitoring or B2K technology. Now, in short, the CIA doesn't swears they haven't found any link to any worldwide foreign power clandestine whatever conspiracy, but here we have something shared recently by a doctor who went to investigate the cases in Cuba, and here we can, I guess we can play the video and hear what that person has to say.
For Rupert Murdoch, it's all about profit and power.
And then we can
child will succeed.
also go on and look at the rest of the article.
Murdoch's
I read part of it.
Empire of Influence, Sundays at 10, only on CNN.
So a new CNN special report will be taking a closer look at one of the most controversial health mysteries in recent years. CNN Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta investigates a cluster of unexplained concussion-like symptoms first reported among American officials and covert personnel in Cuba back in 2016. Sanjay spoke to the CIA's first investigator into the situation, Dr. Paul Andrews, who himself became a victim when he traveled to Havana to investigate. This is a preview.
When Andrews and his two colleagues landed in Havana in April of 2017, the incidents were still classified. Patients were told to not even discuss this with their own families.
We had a van from the embassy pick us up and take us to the hotel. I get into the room and I looked around. I hadn't seen this before. Between every set of rooms was a small door, and it was a service chase. It was unusual.
Did you think there was somebody in that space?
I don't know.
This is that service chase, potentially large enough for a person to stand inside.
I looked out the window. I was on a high floor, and I saw nothing out there that concerned me. There was no other building at a height that would have a direct ability to shine something in my room, say. I think I went to bed probably around 11:30. I slept in my jeans and a t-shirt in case I had to evacuate quickly. And about 4:56, 4:57, I was awakened with severe pain in my right ear. I had a lot of nausea and a terrible headache, and I never suffered from headaches before. The amount of ringing in my ears was just astounding, and things were getting worse and worse and worse. And I started to hear the noise, and I'm really in disbelief.
And you believe that that night there was some sort of injury or damage
to either your inner ear, the nerves around your inner ear, or your brain.
Correct. Absolutely.
All right. Dr. Sanjay Gupta joins us now. Sanjay, in that 2-minute clip, already more information and explanation than I've heard since this began in 2016.
Yeah. I mean, just to hear someone actually describe these unexplained health incidents, what transpires, somebody who never had these symptoms before suddenly comes on, no advance warning and no indication. I mean, concussion-like symptoms without a blow to the head. That's why they call this, that's why we're calling it the immaculate concussion. You know, it's hard to explain, but you hear from somebody who's a physician himself, goes to investigate and develops that.
Okay, so why? I mean, do you get to the why or how or what's really going on?
John, is interesting. As a medical reporter, I really wanted to explain from a brain standpoint what happened to these folks' brains and a possible mechanism. The prevailing theory, as you probably know right now, is that this was some sort of directed energy attack. And that is a word that they use, an attack, so deliberate. And it's a pattern of energy on the electromagnetic spectrum. They believe microwave energy that is pulsed to very high levels and directed at somebody's brain, causing these types of symptoms. What I was surprised by was that these weapons have existed for a long time. This is not new. They've probably even been used for a long time. But over the years, over the decades, they've become increasingly sophisticated. And now we have a better idea of what they can do and what exactly happens to somebody who suffers one of these attacks.
Who were you able to get on the record about all of this besides the doctor there?
So he was very interesting because he's a doctor and he was the first person to investigate. But many of the initial patients that came out of Havana, there's about 24 or so, they did see doctors in Miami. They saw doctors in Pennsylvania. We have those doctors talking now, really, some of them for the first time, describing exactly what they saw. And keep in mind, they saw these patients at a time when the patients themselves didn't even know, are there other people like me out there? Because people said this could be mass psychogenesis, for example. Well, they didn't even know if there was other patients. They thought maybe they were the only ones at that point. So they didn't even tell their families at the point they were initially being examined.
Do the people who've gone through this still have a sort of Cassandra complex where they feel like they're telling the world this is happening and no one's believing them?
I think there's been a lot of back and forth because you've seen in news reports, that maybe this isn't even a real phenomenon. And for them, it's been really painful for some of these patients to say, hey, look, I'm suffering still. Dr. Paul Andrews, by the way, it's not his real name. That's a pseudonym. He is an agent. He's worked for the CIA. He's still worried about his own security. They worry that they're not being believed still. So that's, I think, in part really painful for them. 6 years later for him, and he is still very debilitated. Some of these patients recovered immediately. Some still have these lingering symptoms.
The attack's still happening, as far as we know?
Well, there's been concerns that in China and Austria and Russia that these attacks have happened. You may remember the vice president's delegation. There was concern at that point outside of Hanoi. It's unclear about these other attacks outside of Havana, but the ones in Havana, because they were so quickly sort of evaluated, I think that has the most evidence behind them.
If you think you know nature, look up, look around, look a little closer, and you'll see something magical happens just beyond your perception.
Now, as it were, these attacks are said to be immaculate concussion. Now, obviously, they don't just, appear from nowhere. They happen, and they have to be directed and focused. 1 second. Okay, now I'm just gonna read a part of this article. The CIA physician, Dr. Paul Andrews. This is basically for Nerd Monkey. This is a doctor, Nerd Monkey. This is a doctor working for the CIA. Was one of the first people sent to Havana to investigate a spat of mysterious health incidents that were impacting the embassy people there, who also, later on, who is a pseudonym in order to speak publicly, right, had already been studying the first victims of what has come to be known colloquially as Havana Syndrome, or officially as anomalous health incidents. Physicians in Florida had recorded a series of symptoms that hinted that victims were suffering from a brain injury that was impacting their balance, among other things. And when Andrews traveled to Cuba to investigate about 2 months after he became aware of the first cases. He wasn't too worried for his own safety at first until he was attacked. Where it goes on to say, he said, this can't be happening, and he sat on the edge of his bed for a minute, and things getting worse and worse and worse, he recalled, right? And he's in disbelief because officials at the time suspected some kind of sonic attack. Now, acoustic weapons have been around a long time. Microwave weapons have been around a long time. They used V2K on the terrorists in Afghanistan in the 90s. You like to say that this stuff doesn't exist. This is your stance on the issue. Well, I have one thing to say to you. It's not happening to you, right? It's not happening to you. You haven't seen the effects. You haven't felt the effects. You won't look at patent information when it's presented to you. You duck, you meander around saying that targets are stupid and that we have no idea what's going on. Well, apparently you don't have any idea what's going on, and you don't have the wherewithal to listen to people that do. But I digress. But he found that he could hardly pack. Certain that he and his colleagues were being surveilled. This is a doctor, mind you, not just, a random person. Tried to tell his colleagues quietly that he thought he may have been injured. Anyway, they'll go down to an interim report issued early this year by a separate CIA task force examining who might be behind the episodes. Found that it was unlikely Russia or any other foreign adversary is conducting a widespread global campaign designed to harm U.S. officials, but the agency also did not rule out that a nation-state, including Russia, might be responsible for roughly 24 cases that investigators have been unable to explain by any other known cause. In short, sources say, after years of investigation, the intelligence community is no closer to determining who or what is causing these injuries, or even all of the roughly 24 unsolved cases are all caused by the same actor or mechanism. So basically, 5 years later, Andrews still suffers the debilitating symptoms. Kind of like me and plenty of other targeted individuals who are still suffering from this shit that doesn't exist, so you say, after years of these attacks. He still has balance and vision problems that have made it almost impossible for him to function normally. He has trouble reading, going hiking or jogging, as it makes him nauseated, and forget being in a crowd at a museum, turning his head left and right to look at the art and avoid bumping into the other patrons makes him dizzy and sick. It gets to the point where you just don't want to go out of the house because you say, what's the point? I want to go do this, but I know it's going to make me sick, he says. I don't want to be nauseated. I don't want to be tripping and falling. It's very frustrating that all those things you want to do, you can't, he says. Andrews has been examined by a battery of physicians who have found damage to the vestibular structures, the parts of the body that govern balance and orientation. But like many AHI victims, Andrews lacks one single clear diagnosis. Some victims have been diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries, which he questions because even though he says AHIs are clearly brain injuries, they appear to him to be a different kind of brain injury than doctors have seen before. For Andrews, like the intelligence community, there's little more certainty about who or what is behind the strange phenomenon than when he traveled to Cuba in spring of 2017. Excuse me. Oh. Now, like I said, this idiot nerve gorilla, I call him Nerd Monkey, thinks he knows a lot. Yet he won't do his own research. He won't listen to reference material, and he won't look at evidence you provide to him. I certainly learned about the condition more than I wanted to learn, he told Gupta. Now this is just a doctor. This is just a doctor that, was doing work for the CIA. That's just a doctor that was doing work, but he's nobody, right? Wouldn't know what he's talking about. So let's go on here. Now it says here that Havana Syndrome unlikely caused by a hostile foreign power. Now that's something else. The CIA finds no worldwide campaign by any foreign power, but everyone that it's affecting from around the world, people that are having it happen to them around the world, tend to disagree with the CIA's assertion. But anyway, just here on June 23rd, 2022, Deputy CIA Chief briefs senators on Havana Syndrome as U.S. prepares to pay victims. Now, they're paying victims. They're going to pay victims of these attacks, of these weapons that don't exist, right? That, that don't exist, that people are not being attacked with. Yeah. So I'm not going to go ahead and read this whole thing, but in a classified briefing, Deputy CIA Director David Cohen and Assistant FBI Director Alan Kohler updated a group of senators on the latest on the years-long investigation into the injuries, which the administration calls anomalous health incidents. They were joined by Melissa Dalton, the Defense Department's Assistant Secretary overseeing the Western Hemisphere, and by senior officials from the Justice Department, the Homeland Security Department, and the National Counterintelligence and Security Center. It was unclear what information they provided about the investigation into the incidents, which remain unexplained more than 5 years after U.S. diplomats and spies in Havana began to report experiencing strange sounds and sensations followed by a variety of symptoms, including brain injury. U.S. officials familiar with the investigation say the U.S. has still not determined a cause. Now, it goes on to say some other things, but there's another page that I was looking at where, just like many TIs explain when they present evidence to people or law enforcement, they are greeted with an unsympathetic ear and ignored, just like the CIA is ignoring these people right here. So they find no campaign by foreign hostiles. Right. They've ruled out Russia or any other foreign powers involved in causing the widespread battery of medical symptoms. But that's okay, right? It still doesn't exist. Yet they've been investigating it for years, right? Anyway, I'll just cancel that for now. Now, let's just say, for instance, of the individuals on YouTube that are targeted, and there are probably several hundred, at least. All their symptoms are similar. All the attacks are similar. All the tactics are similar, with the surveillance, the demeaning behavior, the character assassination, and the trolls not unlike yourself, Nerve Gorilla, that inhabit their channels, and the first words out of their mouth are schizophrenia or this shit doesn't exist. Now, I'll go as far as to say one more thing. I've been researching this since it started affecting me years ago. I've seen the patterns. I've seen the effects of it on me, other people. I've seen the use of it being proliferated by the military since the 90s. Since the 90s. Okay. Just wake up, dude. You don't know everything. You say you know everything, but you don't. You absolutely know nothing about what's happening to me and other people. Yet, you know, you do your best to character assassinate everyone that talks about the subject. But oh, hi, Spirit, Faith, and Times. How are you today? How's things over in the UK today? You still getting bombarded by the V2K and other harassment like I do every day? Just the other day, I changed my about section on my YouTube page, describing who and the why are attacking me, and the how and whatever, as concise as I could, because they only give you 1,000 words to do it in, 1,000 characters. So you get people that conspire together, like Muddy here conspires with other people. I've seen him go to other chats with other people in tow and harass them just like he comes here to harass me on my channel. And I see that, you know, Nerve Gorilla, you like to say that, you know, you're some kind of, you know, computer wizard, right? You know everything there is to know about computers. But in my opinion, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, you don't have very much sociological skills as far as how you interact with others, because you're always very condescending, you're very demeaning, and, you know, for lack of a better word, you're an asshole. But you mentioned me in a comment the other day about patents, and I recollect a day over in John Hoffer's channel, where I linked half a dozen patent informations to you, and you said some rigmarole about how links don't work in YouTube, and I'm like, well, I just gave you links. Are you incapable of clicking that link? You would not go look at them. You wouldn't even consider them. But here the other day, you said you looked at a patent, and that this stuff doesn't exist. Well, okay, you tell that to, the military that was using this shit in the 90s. Tell that to that doctor right there of the CIA, who flat out says, that it's microwaves or, acoustic sonic attack, weapons, directed energy weapons. You can go ahead and tell him that he doesn't know what he's talking about. You're another asshole, Muddy, just shut up. Yeah, I know it's not good, Spirit. You had a home invasion. They tampered with your food. That's wonderful. That's horrible shit. Oh, you don't get V2K. Yeah, you get the brain interface technology where they screw with your head and show you the images, though, right? I'm really surprised they don't give you the V2K in tandem with that, because they've done that to me for going on 4 years now. Constant V2K and constant dream harassment, where they'll manipulate, what you see and what you hear. But for the most part, I could continue going on and on about Havana Syndrome. And I can continue going on and on about showing patents. But my point is, you're going to have people like Muddy, here, and Nerve Gorilla, and Chief Handler, and King Sledgehammer, and those type of troll gang stalker types that no matter what you say, you're, or what evidence you provide, or what technological specifications you present, physical evidence, circumstantial evidence, their rebuttal is going to be, oh, you're crazy, or no, this shit isn't happening. So you just have to look at them through the fisheye lens, and look past them, because they don't exist, because you get what I mean? They feel like what's happening to you doesn't exist, so just feel like they don't exist. Yeah, that is one of the more horrible things, that the sleep deprivation and the dream manipulation, Spirit. I mean, as you know, you live on the other side of the planet, and I'm usually here when you're awake. But see, I'm usually awake during the day here too. So, but I've battled with insomnia for 36 or 37 years, but combined with the V2K harassment and the remote neural monitoring harassment and the sleep deprivation tactics they use, it exacerbates the insomnia and sometimes makes it, intolerable. But being of sound mind, and able to discern between facts and bullshit through investigation, research, and critical thinking. I can deal, but it doesn't change the premise that there are still people like you in the UK, people like in Australia, China, Italy, India, Germany, Hawaii, Japan, Indonesia, Middle East, Spain, all being attacked by these gang stalkers. So when I read that the CIA is saying that there's no worldwide conspiracy to attack people with these weapons, after a very short investigation, not even 4 months did they really investigate anything, but it's been happening for years. When you go to the CIA website, which I have, and I have posted a report. I've posted a report on the FBI ICS-3 page. I went to DHS, and the response is the same across the board. Thank you for this information. We'll contact you if we need anything else. In other words, don't call us, we'll call you, because we know this shit's happening and we don't give a shit. That's the response you get. Kind of like the response you get from these trolls on YouTube when you stuff patents up their ass, show them evidence of the identity theft, of the cyber harassment. Well, you don't really have to show them evidence of the cyber harassment because they're the ones perpetrating it. So telling them isn't going to change it for you because they're the ones that are perpetrating it. Well, let me just say this to you, mudbutt. You've been looking at my channel for several months now, and you've heard everything I have to say about why I, for one, am being stalked and why they would do it to others. But you have cognitive dissonance. You have willful ignorance because you're part of the problem. Okay? You get that? Do you understand? Huh? You get that through your pea brain? Right. Okay. So anyway, as I have said here before, they have no intention to really look at the problem with a sympathetic eye rather than an accusing eye and making the victim the problem. So that's all I wanted to say tonight. But I just wanted to put that out there because I'm really tired of Nerd Monkey pretending like every TI is an idiot, when in truth he's the idiot persecuting people for trying to get help for attacks, harassment, threats. Oh, I was going to mention, there's something that the gang stalkers call a code red that they've been threatening me with. It was because, like I said, I just changed my about section on my YouTube channel, and I mentioned names of who's attacking me, and who the handler is, and you know, that they're deep faking me and pretending like I'm on some kind of chat room with them all the time, right? Like they're, you know, they're pretending to be me, my wife, friends of mine, and maintaining that I'm in there with them, when what it is they're surveying me in my home, harassing me in my home, watching me and listening to me in my home, and making up just exorbitant lies and bullshit that mean nothing, that are just like, I mean, according to them, I'm a murderer, rapist, thief, criminal, pedophile, gay, with herpes and fucking whatever else they can think of. But, you know, whatever. These random idiots, right? No, they're not random. They're fucking terrorist, serial killer monsters. And it's a worldwide conspiracy. When I reported it to the police one time, I didn't say anything in the police officer under the section of type of discretion or whatever it says. I can't remember exactly what it says. He wrote down conspiracy. I didn't say anything about conspiracy. I didn't say a damn word about it. But the officer called it a conspiracy. He didn't say a theory. He didn't say an insinuation. He called it a conspiracy. Now that's on a police report. That, you know, I presented evidence. I showed him my V2K evidence, and I told him about the identity theft and the other stuff, and I had evidence. I didn't just walk in there and start talking. I had evidence to provide to them. It's not like, you know, I said I walked in there all crazy, said I'm being gang stalked, I'm good, I've got people following me. I didn't go in there doing that shit. I went in there with fucking evidence. And anyway, but whatever the code red is, they've already tried to give me a heart attack twice with the acoustic, the acoustic directed energy weapon, and that's what they call a code red, and they're threatening me with another one. Like I said, they've done it to me twice already. I'm still here, but I mean, there are other people they've done this to. It's not like I'm the only person. But anyway. I'm going to end on that note right there. I don't need to hear any more of I don't really care about what this muddy character is saying. I haven't really read any of it. But thank you for coming out, Spirit, and whoever else came out. But anyway, have a good night.